Well, hello.
Well, hello.
I said hello.
Hi.
Have you ever been at a conference and you're like, hey, everybody, and the room kind of just looks at you?
Yeah, but have you ever been in that room and then they go, oh, come on, you can do better than that. And you're like, okay, if there is an icebreaker, suddenly there's a session next door that I want to see.
And that's why I sit on the aisle or near the back, just in case, you know?
And yet you and I as speakers both know that how important an icebreaker is.
It is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, Clay, man,
when you start something with Clay, man, I know we're in for it.
I have a story if you're game to hear it. I mean, this is our podcast and it is the premise, so here we go.
And everyone begins with, we have a so yeah.
Can you say no? Can you?
I could.
Could. It would be an awkward podcast for the next 20 something minutes.
It would. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
We're going to sit in awkward silence together. Kind of like a staff meeting when the big boss shows up. So I have a story, and it happened a couple weeks ago, and I've been kind of ruminating on it.
Ruminate.
I'm trying to bring vocabulary here.
Ruminate.
Fundraising is funny, but Mama got an SAT score.
Oh, but what? Okay. All right. I'm not going to go.
Don't do it.
Ruminating. I'm with you.
Ruminating,
yep.
or noodling, as I like to call it. And a client came to me a little crestfallen. Another word.
Crestfallen.
You're welcome, everyone. A little crestfallen. They had just had their annual giving day. It was a university, of course. And she came to me crestfallen because they were doing their debrief.
Is that when you drop your toothpaste? Crestfallen.
Right. Colgate crashing. Anyway, she was crestfallen because they had just had their giving day and they did a great job. And I was so proud of them. But of course, in the debrief, the big boss came. And wanted to join the debrief to give some feedback. And so she was in the middle of talking about their numbers and how many new donors they acquired, how many donors had retained, how much money they raised, things like that. And the big boss said, well, I am proud of the effort. However,
dear.
University XYZ, who is one of their peer and aspirants, on their giving day, raised X amount of dollars and had this many new donors. And that is almost double of what we did.
Oh, dear.
And I'm not, and of course they pulled the famous line, help me understand.
Okay.
How come we didn't raise that much money or have that many donors? And so I asked her if she would mind sharing the name of the university. And so here I am to share it with you. Oh, no, sorry. I'm not going to share that name of that university, but she shared it with me. And so I just did a little digging. And I knew how my client had counted their gifts. It was really clear. It was very much, I would say, above board, according to CASE guidelines and FASB.
CASE, the Council
for Advancement and Support of Education. We have this thing called the Blue Book, and you follow the Blue Book, and John Taylor is like, so...
Is it like Kelly's Blue Book, and you can, value your...
Well, you can value plan gifts, sure. And we had, they had done everything right. No gimmicks, no you get socks if you give, just straight up. So... all this to say, then I dug into the peer and aspirant institutions giving day.
Peer and aspirant institutions. You are a regular thesaurus today.
I am on fire. En fuego. That's en fuego in Spanish for those of you who also are not polyglots. And somebody can go to fundraisingisfunny.com and tell me what a polyglot is.
And for our Gen Z friends, it's lit. Lynn is lit.
Oh, yeah, I'm Liddy. Yes. So... I went and did some digging and found out that, let's just say University XYZ had some creative counting techniques.
Oh, okay.
And their numbers weren't being tallied in the same way that my client's numbers were being tallied. So it was kind of like Blue Book Plus, if you know what I mean. So it's funny because you'd think apples are apples and oranges are oranges. Until you eat a pluot and you don't know what the hell is going on in your life. Right? Because you're like, what is a pluot? And for those of you who've never had one, they're weird and delightful and weird all at the same time. And how come what's inside my orange is red? Like, talk to me about blood oranges, people. That will freak you out as well. So all this to say that fundraising is funny because we do have some leaders who will do creative counting. And it's not, up to them. But when you go to compare yourself, you have to really look at the parameters for the comparison.
So are we talking about how we track numbers and results? Are we talking about benchmarking? Are we kind of talking about both?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Clay, in your world.
Well, yeah. So there's 1,000,001 stories, and it could go on for hours. But I think this might relate to your world as well, because I've seen this done now a few times, and it sort of makes my head hurt. Now, when we say major gift, and people say we need to invest more in major gifts. First I go, okay, well, what to you is a major gift? And really, okay. And that I'm sure we have talked about in other episodes and just sort of, beat into the ground. And when we say major gift, are we talking about an annual gift that we expect to get as part of our budget every year? And therefore we expect that donor to renew it again and again? Or are we talking about a major gift that's for a specific project or a specific campaign?
Right.
Or, really let's put some definition to what we mean, because what I sometimes see is major gifts is a separate budget line item.
Yeah, all the time.
And how exactly does that work? Because if I make a major gift, my gift goes into the separate budget line item. But if I was solicited for not a major gift and my projections were in this, it gets messy.
You're making my head hurt.
Right. Precisely.
But also, why do we compare?
And then I get slammed into quote unquote portfolio, because this year I could afford to give it the major gift threshold, but next year or last year I wasn't. So where am I? And we're going, oh gosh, our annual fund results are just terrible, but our major gift number is through the roof. Well, is it? But
why are we also so comparative? What is this benchmarking obsession? Higher ed is absolutely obsessed with benchmarking, and I'm like, oh, navel gazing, you mean? Numbers lie.
Now, I am really trying hard, because for the first 50 years of my life, I eschewed. There's a word. I eschewed physical activity and the gym culture. I have in the last year become
a gym bro.
And my trainer, to her credit, says to me frequently, the only person you have to compete with is who you were yesterday.
Oh, I like that.
Which for a while I sort of went, yeah, okay.
I really like that.
But the more I've absorbed it, right?
Yeah.
And we're adding weight on, and we're, I keep looking myself in the mirror going, the only person I have to compete with is who I was yesterday. And I tell that because that is the point of benchmarking. The only competition, the only thing that I have to strive for as a fundraiser is, am I better than I was yesterday?
But then how come our leadership is absolutely frothing? So how come my friend experiences, my client goes into her debrief meeting and her boss says, or her boss's boss says, well, so-and-so had their giving day and we didn't reach their numbers, even though they have no merit or basis of what their numbers are on even.
Well, let me ask you this. If we're going to talk about benchmarking comparison, how many snacks can you devour in a short sponsorship recognition break?
Oh, let's find out.
You want to find out?
Yeah, I need a snack.
Do we need to set a goal and a benchmark to get there, or?
No, I'm fine all by myself.
All right.
Okay, I cannot be trusted. So
numbers do lie.
Yeah,
is what we're basically getting to.
For example, Clay,
if
I were to go to some of your organizations and ask their fundraising leadership, hi, can you tell me what a first-time donor is?
they would go unicorn, mythology,
Rumor.
rumors.
Rumor has it. Rumor has it.
Okay, yes, a first-time donor, yes.
So some organizations define a first-time donor as somebody who hasn't given in 5 or 10 years.
I might have to have another snack break on that one.
Some people define a first-time donor as like, oh, well, they gave to our unrestricted fund, but they've never given restricted. So now they're a first-time donor to a restricted fund. Whereas me, I'm old school and simple. Have they ever exchanged gifts, property, or otherwise things with your nonprofit before? First-time donor. Have they ever given before, right? I mean, you don't have to agree, and nobody has to agree with me.
I can't agree because I'm having a nap now because that just rocked me to sleep. So, yeah. No, 100% with you.
All that to say is
100% with you.
What one organization measures as a first-time donor and what I measure as a first-time donor can be two different things.
Correct.
This numbers that lie thing comes up in many areas. Like, have you ever had the good fortune of having a conversation with somebody that runs an annual fund at a university and says, well, what counts in the annual fund?
Yes.
And then 7 hours later, woken up from your nap and been like, oh my God, that's an interesting, what is annual giving? What is a major gift? So how, like, this numbers lying thing is important because people are put under so much pressure. We already have retention problems in our employees as it is. In our industry.
Well, we have retention problems with our donors. We have retention problems with our employees. We have retention problems with our leadership.
Sometimes I even have water retention problems, but that's a whole nother issue. All this to say is, okay, so what does it mean?
I just sighed into the microphone and fogged up my glasses, and now I can't see it. I mean, that's funny.
That is funny because it makes you look awkward, like you got a fog storm in your face.
Well, but I'd rather have foggy glasses than try to dig into some of these wonky numbers.
Well, but are wonky numbers a result of, have you ever seen an organization who had some numbers one year and then when they got a new leader, they had completely different numbers the next year?
I've made a pretty good career, both as a frontline fundraiser and as a consultant dealing with that exact issue.
So how do we understand? How do we combat the number blues?
Here's the question. And I think this is for others to discuss at other higher levels. The question is, do we need to invest in standardizing numbers for the profession?
Well, we have that, but nobody seems to want to follow
Well,
them.
do we though? Do we?
Some, like, okay, so, we have the Case Blue Book and we have FASB accounting standards, but we don't have...
I mean,
and we have CFRE, like, that says what a definition of certain things is.
Sure,
but
AFP has them as
the
well.
Code of Ethics and all that stuff, but nowhere does it say you have to count it this way, otherwise you're false.
Have you ever looked up the formula for lifetime value?
Whose formula?
There you go. Precisely. Right. There are at least 5 that I know of different calculations for lifetime value.
So this reminds me, okay, so I was a kid once. I know, hard to believe. I was a child. And
sometimes it's not, though. Sometimes it's very believable.
Still a child. And my dad, of course, worked in the food industry. And all of a sudden, one day he came home from work and a work trip, and he was really upset. And I couldn't figure out why he was so upset. And he was mumbling, and that's usually means that he's really upset. And the year was 1988 through 1990, so that's a year in my life, apparently. But about that time, my dad came home mumbling, and I said, "What's wrong, Daddy?" As I ate my, Jell-O that my mom had carefully made for me that day after dinner. And he said, "These labels. And I was like, "What's going on with the labels?" And he said, they passed a new law that said that every food company in America has to use the nutrition facts same labels. Well, at the time, he was the CEO of Planters and Peanuts, and that was going to cost them millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Sure.
And he had to redesign. He had to have all the packaging for the nuts and the snacks and the cheese balls and everything redesigned because regardless of the company, you have to have the same label for nutrition on it. So the reason I'm telling this story, it's not just because I'm talking about my dad, who I love dearly, and my mom, but shouldn't we all have the same nutrition label on our fundraising?
Well, but I mean, and this is a totally...
Would standardizing help?
Would it help? And this is tangential, but forgive me.
It's okay.
Because some of the people that I respect most, and I have always said and will continue to say, the best friend, the best relationship that a development officer can have internally is with your chief financial officer.
Amen.
Do not at me. I don't want to hear it. We'll discuss it in a different episode, but
sure.
Fundraising is about relationships. Yes, fundraising is about relationships that bring in money. And if you and the financial officer are on the same page, your job, your life, everything is going to be a lot easier. But we have financial officers who come from different backgrounds. I would very much like to encourage boards and leadership and CEOs to bring in financial people with specific experience in nonprofits.
Yes.
CFOs that have never been around fundraising before do not understand the complexities and the issues around nonprofit accounting and what needs to go in it. Just as simple as how you record a pledge, because I will be whatted if I am not counting that 5 years of payments. I know you accrued it in year 1, but it's still okay for me in year 2. But simple as soft credits. I had a CFO, a very good, very talented CFO, but I had a CFO tell me one time that soft crediting was the most unethical thing she had ever heard of. I know, right.
Then how do DAFs and community private foundations?
Precisely. Well, no. A DAF is just a checkbook, so you can record it to the donor's account.
No. And all this to say... Fortunately,
I resigned before the audit happened, so I have no idea what happened there. But anyway, no, my point is, could we standardize
there's a vocab word.
Look that up in your funkin'
wagnalls.
That's
like strategery.
Standardize. Does anybody else remember look that up in your funkin' wagnalls?
Heck yeah.
Laugh-In?
Strunk and White, too.
Strunk and White. But for those of you who are listening that don't remember Laugh-In, please search out episodes of Laugh-In, Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. Trust me, you have never seen anything as funny. Anyway, and sometimes fundraising offices are a little bit like a Laugh-In episode.
I feel like our podcast is a little bit like a Laugh-In episode.
I mean, I have worked with marketing people that are Joanne Worley. I'm just saying. And database admins that are Goldie Hawn. But that's a whole other story as well.
And donors that are Goldie Hawn and Overboard. You're welcome for that movie reference.
I love that movie. That's such a great movie.
You're welcome.
That is such a stupid, great movie. What's our punchline?
What's our punchline, Clay?
Standardizing across the sector, I don't know. I think that would be huge. And who is the arbiter of that? I think the punchline is know your numbers for yourself. Benchmark? Sure. Compare and see what others are doing, but understand the differences and the nuances, and don't compare yourself to an organization that isn't doing the exact same thing. You only have to be better than or as good as you were last year.
Agreed. And here's the other thing. If you know your numbers and when you get educated on your numbers and the industry, and my punchline is this, stand up for your numbers and know. And you know what? In my world, the peer and aspirants, blah, 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 know how they count, know their ins and outs. You know what I mean? Like really think about what that means for your organization. Because if somebody walks in the door and says, you're not doing as good as someone else, but you know that their numbers might be conflated, for example, or maybe they took a dollar amount off of every registration and counted it as a gift, or that their definition of first-time donor and your definition of first-time donor are different. Speak up. Knowledge is power.
Can I offer a piece of tactical advice?
Oh, I love it. Tactics and practice. Let's go. I don't know where that came from.
It's our new jingle, though. Dashboards in CRMs out of the box may not be set up the way you think about them. And I know too many folks that trust their dashboard without knowing what goes into it. So make sure that somebody at your organization knows exactly what is going into those dashboards so that when you are reporting on them, you know what you're talking about. That is where we will fall apart every time, is if we don't know the numbers, right? If we don't know our numbers backwards and forwards and where it goes into them. So again, the takeaway, know your numbers, know what you're measuring for you, measure what matters.
Have you had one of those situations that you want to share with us where somebody has used numbers either against you or just not in a way that made sense for you? And you were like, how do I battle through this? How do I think about this? Let us know. We want you to share. You can go to fundraisingisfunny.com and, we can talk through that with you. You can join our community and really, walk through what are those challenges? Like, do you have a funny story about data, maybe where numbers got messed up and you were like, da, 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 and then the numbers were like, yeah, no, or because we've all done that. We've all, had that moment where you're like,
how about the great number story, right?
Yeah. Tell us a triumph where you used numbers and you were like, take that. Hi-ya!
Or you walked into some meeting and you had your numbers and you knew them backwards and forwards and you
right. And you knew what you were talking about, so you weren't shook at all, so shooketh, exactly.
Be not shooketh, knoweth thy data.
I feel like that would be in Gothic script and should be a tattoo or a face sticker.
We need
to get you some help.
So on that note, we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.